Кто?
That's a long presentation.
No. Video presentation. With. Зачем? Dear colleagues in our auditorium and our remote participant, I am glad to see you again after a relatively short break. And the theme of our meeting today is certain aspects of sustainable development. Before we start our scientific seminar, let me introduce our expert on the state topic. Dr. Vladimir Skalkin, Professor Olga Yefimova, Dr. Елизавета Оглоблина, our informational support, Dr. Mezhba Zbigniew, executive editor of our peer review scientific journal, Business and Economic Study, Professor Alexander Fedyunin, and we are waiting for coming the head of our expert team, Professor Елена Zvonova. Our remote expert today are Dr. Sagitova Roza, we greet you once more, and Professor Khalid Hosseini, Business School of Portsmouth.
Not available at the moment, but we have Michael O'Connor here with us today.
Sorry?
Professor Khalid Hosseini is not here yet, but we have Michael O'Connor with us today.
Oh, I apologize. Represent your participant, Rosa, please, for all of us.
So we have, can you see us? We have Nif Al-Dosari today, our PhD graduate.
Nice to see you, Nif.
We have a senior lecturer in accounting and financial management, Michael O'Connor, and myself, RozaSagitova.
Nice to see our dear new expert, and welcome to our regular scientific seminar. And of course, we are glad to greet our Vietnamese participant, our colleagues from Banking Academy of Vietnam. Several organization remark. I remind you, we are strictly limited in time. In our disposal, we have an hour and a half. So I apologize maybe for possible interrupting you. We have 10 minutes for each presentation and 10 minutes for consequent discussion. Is it clear?
Yes, I see.
Mm-hmm. So, in case of any technical problems, dear participant in auditorium, you can come and ask your question from Presidium table using this microphone or from your own seat, if you wish. And for our remote participant, in case of any sound problem, please use our message box and type your question, please. So, after all our precautions, we can start. And first presenter is our dear professor from Banking Academy of Vietnam, Nguyen Thi Thanh Tan, with presentation modernization of food retailing system in Vietnam from the consumer perspective. Please, your turn, dear colleague. Start your presentation.
Okay, I see. The next we can introduce our participant. The first the presenter Nguyễn Thị Thanh Tân from Faculty in International Business, and two lecturers from Economic Department. All of them, all of us from Banking Academy. I'm Đặng Thu Thủy from Banking Academy too. Can you hear my voice? Now we start my presentation.
Welcome.
Can you hear me? Excuse me. Hello. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Nguyễn Thị Thanh Tân. I'm from Faculty of International Business of Banking Academy. Today, I'm glad to be here to tell you about my research with the title Modernization of the Food Retailing System in Vietnam from the Customer Perspective. First of all, let me talk about the research motivation. In 2007, Vietnam became a member of the World Trade Organization. That caused a rapid change in its retail industry, especially after Vietnam fully opened up its domestic retail market under its commitment to the World Trade Organizations by early 2009. This is some data you can see about a rapidly revolution of modern formats in Vietnam after joining the World Trade Organizations. And so it is necessary to raise a question that will traditional market be replaced by the modern ones, or they can be coexist in some way? And despite such an impressively rapid expansion of the supermarket system in Vietnam, there has been little academic research on consumer behavior, especially about the change in consumer preference relating to traditional market and modern retail outlets in Vietnam. So the purpose of this study is to provide information about the modernization of food retailing system in Vietnam by analyzing consumer behavior relating to their shopping outlet choice. My presentation will include 4 main parts. The part 1 is a brief overview of Vietnamese retail market. And the part 2 will introduce the research design methodology and testing hypothesis. And the part 3 will show the empirical results and some discussion. And finally, part 4 gives the conclusion and contribution of this study. Now let's go to the first part, the brief overview of Vietnamese retail market. This part will introduce the macro environments and the modernization of retail system in Vietnam. As you can see, before 1986, Vietnam is a centrally planned economy in which all food distribution were carried out through the rationing system and state-owned store. However, the country soon starts suffering from an acute crisis with respect to the state goods. And this made the Vietnamese government introduced renovation policies, and we call it Đổi mới, in 1986. That leading to a strong economic growth in Vietnam. As you can see here in this table is the GDPs of Vietnam in the periods from 1986 to 2012. And in light of this strong economic development, distribution structure also changed rapidly. In 1993, the first supermarket were opened in Ho Chi Minh City, named Minimart, a state-run enterprise. However, it's closed down. Only 4 days after opening, due to the insufficiency of inventory. In 1998, Vietnam, for the first time, tried to open its retail sector to foreign investment by granting a license to the French Bourbon Group, and another license was granted to Metro Cash and Carry in 2001. This creates an intense competition in Vietnam retailing sector, pushing it to impressively high level of development. The modern distribution network grew at a rate of about between 15 to 20% each year between 2000 and 2011. Additionally, in 2000 additionally, with the development of internet and telecommunication technology in the context of an increased number of young and savvy consumers, a new form of business we call is, as you can know, is e-commerce has emerged from 2002 and become popular from 2009. And as I said before, in 2007, Vietnam became a member of the One Trade Organization, and its commitment to open retail sector make the Vietnamese retail market develop even more rapidly. Next, I will introduce about the study method. This shows the number of supermarkets and shopping centers from the in 2006 and in 2012. Next, we will move to the part 2. I will talk about the research design, methodology, and testing hypothesis. This study will include to collect the data for this study. We make a questionnaire to collect the data from the consumer behavior in Hanoi in 2012. We include the instruction that the questionnaire will be answered by the family member response for the household shopping. And the respondents were asked to grade the importance from level from 1 to 5 for reasons that influence their decision making on selecting the type of retail outlets. Then the probit model for binary choice and statistical analysis are selected for analyzing the factors that affecting the selection of traditional markets versus supermarkets. We build after learning from the previous study. We build up about 8 hypotheses in this study. As you can see here, the hypothesis 1 is about the freshness. Hypothesis 2 about the good safety. 3 about the number 3 about the cheap price, the income, the relationship with seller, about the necessary to bargaining, and the service of seller, and the last one is about the convenience for shopping. And next, we show you the empirical study in the results in this study. As you can see here, this table shows you the place where the consumer do most of their shopping for different kinds of products. It is impressive that processed goods and beverage are now distributed mainly through supermarket, about 71%, rather than mom-and-pop store, in compare with the 2006. As you can see, it has increased about 2.5 times, from 28% to 71%, you see? And on the other hand, consumers continue to make most of their purchase for fresh food at traditional market, in totally about 90% from 2006 and 2012 are the same. Only about 10% bought from buying fresh food at the supermarket, you see. Next, this table give the definition and descriptive of the variable used in the model. And the next table shows you the result from the probit binary choice model. As we can see here, for fresh food, both 2006 and 2012 data supporting the hypothesis number 2 about the safety, number 5 about the relationship, and number 6 about the bargain. And while the hypothesis number 1 about the freshness, number 3 about cheap price, and number 4 about the income, number 8 about the convenience, was supposed by 2006 data, but is no longer be supported by 2012 data. For processed food and beverage, only hypothesis number 5 and number 6 are supported by both 2006 and 2012 data. That means for fresh food, safe, good, and unnecessary to bargain are the main factor attracting consumer to supermarket. And keeping good relationship with the seller, keeping consumer to continue buying fresh food at traditional market.
Dear colleague, I remind our time limit.
And freshness, cheap price, and convenience store to access are now not significant in helping consumer to select shopping outlet choice for this item. And for processed food and drink, supermarket compete with mom-and-pop stores for buying opening store near their home. Price become less important in 2012 survey. The next table shows the evaluation of market performance of supermarket versus traditional organized market. We can see that the evaluation of supermarket are almost better than organized market.
Please come to conclusion. We have time limits.
Yeah. Come to conclusion. Okay. The main finding of this study is the traditional market still dominates the retail sector for fresh food. And the traditional organized market seems to be losing business, not to supermarket, but to frog market. Processed food and beverages are now distributed mainly through supermarket rather than mom and pop store. And the evaluation for price level and freshness in supermarket and organized market are now almost the same. And thus the price level in supermarket is considered to be better than in organized market. And there are some conclusion of this study. The technological development and economies of scale will bestow upon modern players certain advantages in terms of both cost and customer service over traditional retailer. However, at present, traditional market retain an important position in the Vietnamese lifestyle, especially in the retail sector for fresh foods. And attention will continue to be paid to upgrading and modernizing the existing traditional bazaar system. The Vietnamese retailing industry will continue to develop even more rapidly. An empirical study on the supermarket revolution in Vietnam after 5 years of joining into the one trade organization and saw the change in consumer shopping behavior. And the second contribution of this study is provide a better understanding about consumer shopping behavior, as well as about the strength and weakness of the old and the new retail format. And the last contribution is about this study will be helpful for discussing the possible future change in Vietnamese retail system and suggest recommendation for policymaker and business operator for the modernization of the food retailing system. The traditional market should focus on the distribution for fresh foods, while supermarkets will focus on the others. The policy so that should be towards upgrading the bazaar alongside supporting the modern outlets rather than to mix them together. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you for your presentation. Dear colleagues, any question to our reporter? Dear Miss colleague, please press cell stop presented. Stop presentation.
Yep.
In the right up corner, in the center. Yes.
Do you have any question?
Press bottom stop presentation, please, Vietnamese colleague. Nevertheless, dear colleague, do you have any question to our presenter? Please, Professor. Dr. Skalkin. Please.
Okay. Thank you very much for extremely good presentation. I really enjoy it, and it was a really comprehensive study which collected a lot of statistics. It was interesting model, processing of data, and good conclusions. But my question is will be related to future outcomes of the study and how results could be used. If we reverse perspective and look at the problem not from consumer perspective, who enjoys frog markets as replacement for supermarkets. And that is understandable because of in Vietnam it's great weather, good air conditions, in a sense that it's better to be outside a hole than inside. Then many people, of course, have habits to shop at open different types of non-organized, organized markets, but anyway, that's not inside buildings. While traditional chains, retail chains, they work in closed buildings, and that has advantages and disadvantages which were expressively shown in your paper, and that had a lot of information. But if you look at the problem from position of a retail chain, if a retail chain sees that consumers want to shop at frog markets, can they adjust to this habit and change the format of their sales and enter these frog markets? But it would be not as small or individual entrepreneurs, but as formats of big retail chains. Does it have such implication? Does your study have such implication? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, first of all, about the how this study can be used in the future. As I talked before about the contribution of this study, this is a study from the consumer perspective, you know. So the policies maker and as well as the retailer can, based on the result from this study, to consider about their future strategy to make competition with the traditional format, with the traditional market. Of course, because of the Vietnamese culture, Vietnamese culture and their habit to make their purchase of fresh foods in the open market, as you said. But that's it's a long time of history and the culture. But the habits of the young customer are now changing, and we can see that the supermarket are also development rapidly in Vietnam. But the supermarket in the first step not to be shouldn't pay their how can I say, they should not pay much more in pay much their how can I say, they should be focused on not in the fresh food, but on the other. For example, in the drink and beverage, or in the processed food, or in the non-food item, And the fresh food are now still be covered by the traditional market. So because of the culture needs time. They need so long time to change. So, with the change in the young generation are now not keeping their habits of doing the buying fresh foods in the open market, as you said. They are now prefer to shopping in the air conditioning in a modern supermarket as a trend. Is my answer clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for good explanation. And before giving the floor to our next presenter, Niv Aldasheri, I will allow myself to read out several words about countries that our today presenter, our today reporter represent. Every year, according to the methodology of World Economic Forum, index of global competitiveness for each country is calculated on the basis of public statistic and global survey results. National competitiveness is defined as ability of country to ensure stable economic growth rates that will be sustainable in the medium-term perspective. And the global competitiveness index is composed of 113 variables. Quality of institutions, infrastructure, macroeconomic stability, health and primary education, higher education and professional preparation, the efficiency of goods and services market, market efficiency labor, the financial market development, technological development level, the international market size, competitiveness of companies, and innovative potential. According to the report of 2015 and 2016, the United States, Switzerland, and Germany were the most competitive country from so-called high-yielding countries. And I highlighted Vietnam, Pakistan, and Nigeria were the most competitive countries from low-income countries. Imagine, at the same time, such country like Italy, that is highly profitable, was attributed to countries with low competitiveness. It is about our Vietnamese participant. Now about our representative of our presenter about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia announced the creation of a whole city which would be entirely powered by renewable energy, solar of course, and served by driverless vehicle and vertical farms. The city, called NEOM, is to span over more than 26,000 square kilometers, stretching across the border of northwest Saudi Arabia into Jordan and Egypt, and it is the first private business zone to span 3 countries. Saudi Arabia will invest, only imagine, $500 billion from its sovereign wealth fund into 9 key investment sectors in this city: energy and water, mobility, biotech, food, technological and digital sciences, advanced manufacturing, media, and entertainment. I think this data is impressive, and we impressed. And on such note, I give the floor to our dear representative of Business School of Portmont, Nif Aldasari. Please, it's your turn.
Just a second, download the slides.
Леш, дайте наши слайды.
Включаете слайды?
Да, включаем сейчас.
We wait a minute. During our pause, I remind to our expert team, your duty today to choose the most impressive report, the most impressive presentation, and after all presentation, it will be voting. And I remind that our remote participant may be vote too. Okay. So, Nif.
Yes, hi.
Hello.
Yeah, actually, my presentation related to my PhD topic, which is about the community disclosure, which is the information of community activities in annual reports used by Saudi Arabian firms, non-financial firms. And actually here, I will be about the determinants as in terms of corporate governance.
Dear Nif, stop the presentation, please. We try to solve several technical problems.
Роза, пожалуйста, остановите показ слайдов и загрузите файл снова.
Reboot it, please.
Роза, давайте мы начнем презентацию, потому что вылетает ваша.
Вот я сейчас еще раз загрузила.
Shall we take the conduct in our hand?
Видно сейчас?
Сейчас идет загрузка. Нет, прекратите показ. Я открою презентацию от себя.
Хорошо.
Community. Community disclosure practices. Just a few minutes. We have unpredictable technical problem. The burden of our English participant presentation. So,
how can we change the slide if we need to change the slide? Can we start?
Роза, 1 минуту, презентация плохо открывается.
У нас открылась, мы вас видим.
Файла, и мы покажем ее еще раз.
okay, and now I continue my explanation about our voting. Our remote participant, our remote expert. To shorten the process of voting, my suggestion is just show us the serial number of presentation which you think impressed most of all. Maybe all presentations are equal and you decide to all of them deserve the publication in our scientific journal RozaSagitova. It may be so. You just list all serial number of all our presenters. Is it clear how to vote? And the conclusion may be given to us, to the now the head of our expert team will be maybe Alexander Fedyunin, if you don't.
Роза, примите участие в роли выступающего кнопкой сверху и показывайте презентацию.
Все, да?
Да, продолжайте.
Hello. Can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, my name is Nif, and actually the topic which is related to my PhD thesis, which is about the community disclosure practice in Saudi Arabian firms, which is, I examine the community information in annual report, and it's determined, which is about in terms of corporate governance, in Saudi Arabia, and its impact on financial performance, the impact of community disclosure in annual reports, how the investor value the information of community activities in annual reports. Actually, these my research objectives, which is the first one is to explore the community disclosure in annual reports, the level of community disclosure, and actually the trend. And the second objective will be about the trend of the level of community disclosure for over 4 years, from 2013 to 2016. And the third objective will be about, as I mentioned, about the determinants of community disclosure, which is corporate governance. How the corporate governance influence the existing of community information in annual reports. And the fourth objective will be about the impact or the effect of community disclosure information in annual reports on financial performance. Based on the objective, I have created this, I have made this research questions. What's the level of community disclosure in annual reports? What's the trend of the community disclosure in annual report of Saudi Arabian non-financial firms over 4 years? And the third objective, do corporate governance mechanism affect the level of community disclosure in annual reports? And the fourth one, which is, as I mentioned, the impact of it. What's the impact of community in financial firm performance? Here, my contribution and originality of this research will be which contribute to the corporate governance and CSR in general disclosure literature. Also the third one will be the contribution of this study provide evidence of the impact of community disclosure and firm performance. And actually here, why I choose this topic, because just as best to my knowledge, there is 4 papers in developed countries, UK, just in UK. So that's why this will be contribution to the literature in developing countries. Here, why I choose this corporate community activities disclosure. As I mentioned that there is just 4 papers and about just discussed and examined the community disclosure, and as best of my knowledge, just here three of them, just about one of them about the how the corporate governance affect the community disclosure. Actually, the second reason why I choose community disclosure, which is about, when you just discuss or study the CSR in general, CSR, there is different types of CSR, about employee, about environmental disclosure, and there is argue about which the increase the reputation of the firms and the public. Just the public care about what the companies or the firms provide them, like for education, for health, for something just related to the community, not in general, not just about the employees or about the environment. here actually there is another reason. There is many studies about the philanthropic activities disclosure, and they indicate that as for the community, but the community, and we know that, as we know that the philanthropy about just indicate charity and donation, but actually the service about or the service the community need, which is not just related to charity or donation. There is more than that, supporting education, supporting education, supporting health, training. And here maybe there is maybe there will be a question why I just choose Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia have a special, they have some special, they actually have something unique among the developing countries, which is, as we know, it's just in the Middle East, one of the group 20, Saudi Arabia, and the rest as richest country. And actually, another reason Saudi Arabia and the community apply, as we know, the Islamic principle, which is about, there is annual reports, there is some community activities information related to Muslim community, like just for supporting, Hajj, donation, and Holy Quran memorization. Here I use this theory, the agency theory, to explain the relation between manager and shareholders. The manager, disclose more information to reduce the cost, and for sure the stockholders will incur the cost, the agency cost to monitor the companies. And there is the second story, which is storage theory, which is the manager. There is the manager trust. The stockholders trust the manager, and the managers run the companies for the to meet the needs or to meet the objective of the stockholders. And there's the third theory I used in my study, which is stockholders theory, to explain the relationship between the stockholders and companies. And the stockholders, I use it here because community as one of the stockholders. There is also the fourth theory, which is the signal theory. Manager signal the information to distinguish themselves from the company, which is non-financial, non-social firm, by disclose more information, voluntary, to improve the reputation of the firms. Actually, here in my methodology, actually to measure the community disclosure, I made self-index based on the literature, as I mentioned in the first point here, which is about 18 items, which include charity, supporting training, and supporting education, how the company, there is like the company opened their facilities to the university's students. Actually, and this, the first, the index will be the actually first to measure the trend and the level of disclosure, and actually the second, and actually will be use the outcome of the index to measure the first and second empiricals. Actually, I use Stata software to to examine or to analyze for the second model and for the first and second model. Actually, the second model, as I mentioned, that based on the third objective, how the corporate governance determine the community disclosure. You see the CCAD, which is independent, CCDS, which is a score of community disclosure, independent, and dependent, sorry, and independent, which is the corporate governance, which is board side, board meeting, and ratio of independent directors, and chairperson with multiple directors, and the role of CEO, and audit committee, meeting and size, and government ownership, and the concentration ownership, and audit type, and there is a control variables, firm size, return on assets. Actually, the second model here, which is I used to measure the financial firm performance, which is Tobin Q, and you can see as it dependent, and you can see the independent, which is community, and I used control corporate governance and firm characteristic as a control variables. Here actually, for the first model, actually I used not first model, sorry, for the level of disclosure. Here, my observation of my study, which is 427, and the mean of the mean of the level of disclosure, and the maximum or the highest disclosure, which is Saudi telecom companies. And here you can see I compare the result of related to the literature. It's less than a study in 2012, and it's higher the study recently study, which is actually about the corporate governance in 2015. Actually, and here you can see here also what's the highest sector and what's the lowest sector disclose this information, which is the industrial sector, which was the highest, actually consistent with the literature, and the authorities has the lowest disclosure. Because as I mentioned, that industrial sector, which has the highest disclosure, which is because actually what I found that the firm or the industry interact directly with the customer and community has the highest disclosure. As Yekini mentioned that, you can see it in the first point, and here is actually the second about the trend over 4 years. You can see there is the mean, which is there is a slight increase from 2013 to 2014. As I mentioned, this is it. Okay. Here the corporate governance mechanism. We can see the first there is the hypothesis, which is hypothesis were 10 hypotheses. The first one accepted, and the second one rejected because there is no significant, and the third one rejected. Actually, it was significant, but is negative. And the third one, which is accepted, which is when the chairperson with multiple directorship, have more experience, deal with different boards, have more experience, so they will outcome of different board will be the outcome for the board of the companies. Actually, and that the fifth hypothesis, CEO Dolty, actually rejected most of them rejected except just four, except just the three. And just I have just four hypotheses significant. Here the result of the determinant about the community disclosure. As I said, this is four. As I mentioned, that there is four hypotheses were significant, which is blockboard direct ownership, which is accepted because the hypothesis expected that will be negative. Yeah, actually, and the 10th hypothesis will be about, and which is to answer the fourth question, which what's the effect of community disclosure on fair performance? As I mentioned that, actually, unfortunately, this hypothesis was rejected because the investors value the community will be more cost the company, so they didn't agree with the company to disclose or to adopt the community disclosure. And as I mentioned that there is 4 papers in community disclosure, and you can see it in the slide. Yeah, and thank you for your time and welcome for any questions and comments.
Thank you, Niv, for interesting presentation. Dear colleagues, do you have any question to our reporter? Please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Niv Farag. Was extremely interesting to listen to your study, and that's always interesting to learn about specifics of each nation, how things are going there, and always thoughts are how to compare with other nations, and it is always exciting to learn about such things. My question is about well-known theories of corporate governance that you mentioned and that you worked with. Namely, you mentioned agency theory, stakeholders theory, stewardship theory, and these theories underlying many ethical conducts and many corporate governance rules. Because once you use one of these theories, you will structure the very code of governance different ways. And my question is about usage of broad theories like you worked with, like those that were very well known, as a tool for regression analysis. Because when we use regression analysis, we deal with well-defined and well-structured facts that could be, they don't have ambiguity. While if you ask question whether this company uses agency theory, meaning that interest of managers and interest of shareholders are radically different, so they play the game who wants to defend whose interest, and who may win, who may lose, and there are studies, there is a lot of literature on game theory about that. And for example, next to it is stewardship theory, which is, to my knowledge, is very common in the countries where ownership has bigger role than managing. And in this case, manager has only one role: to serve the owner, and it is implied that the manager cannot have own interest which contradict owner's interest. So these areas are very vague and very based on human perception. And that deals with another area as neuroeconomics. What motivates certain person who occupies certain position? What portion of motivation is due to, it could be explained by stewardship theory, means that in his mind or her mind, he doesn't have any other interests being manager and any other interest compared to shareholder, or agency theory, they have opposite interests and should play the game, or stakeholder theory, where there is interest of many participants in community are taken into account, and how to be sure that exactly question here is only stakeholder interest but no agency interest. Here is only stewardship interest and no stakeholder, like accept, reject, like we had in your study, and that is a technically perfect done, but question about area of the term. Okay, the scope of the word that is used, how it is allowed for statistical research. Okay, I hope I'm clear, or maybe.
Clarify it more. What are you? I mean, why I use the different theories? You mean, or you mean that why I use different theories?
Yeah, frontier of a term. For example, a scope of each of the theories has limits. And when you apply statistical analysis, you should rely either on personal estimates or personal values, which could be different. The same thing could be treated because it deals with a very detailed analysis of human perception. Because theory itself, it's a framework of analysis, but human perception, what type of theory is used in this particular case, in this particular relationship between shareholder and the manager? That's it belongs to the class of not well structured problems. It's a very vague structured problem, which is extremely interesting thing, and very interesting that you have touched this area. But I see a lot of difficulty in deciding what type of specific theoretical framework could be put as a subject of statistical of regression analysis. That's my question.
Actually, I understood your question. Actually, and thank you for the question. Actually, the different theories have been used in literature and the CSR disclosure. Actually, and as best to my knowledge, the different theories, all of them supported the hypothesis to be positive. Like, for example, the agency theory, the managers try to improve the companies, the image of companies, which is, and reduce the information asymmetry. This is just for example, which is in turn the financial performance will be increased. So one of this strategy, the company should, the manager, disclose the community disclosure, because as we know, there is ethical investors, or there is investor support, and there is investor, from the local community, which support the companies to, motivate the companies to support their community, which is, and for sure, the board directors or actually they will make the strategy to to achieve that goals. Also, the signal theory to improve the image of to improve the image of firms, which is in turn improve the financial performance. Steward theory, like I use it for COO, actually the the owners trust the managers, and the manager, because they are trusted, their goal to achieve the interest of the investors or the owners. And as I mentioned that, one of them to improve the image and reputation of the firms in the in the Saudi Arabia context. That's why I use the different tiers.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you
Niv.
very much.
Are you satisfied,
Yes,
Dr.
of course.
Skalkin?
Yes, thank you.
So, because of lack of our time, we interrupt our interesting discussion, and I give the floor our next reporter. Dear Vietnamese colleague, are you ready to present your second report? Low carbon FDI. Dear Vietnamese colleagues, can you hear me explicitly?
Yes.
It's your turn to report. We are waiting for your presentation. Please start.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all of you to give me the opportunities to give my presentations about lower carbon FTA and some recommendations for Vietnam. As observers know that without doubt, human actions have seriously damaged and destroyed the environment, and continue to step on what developed countries did in the past. Now, developing countries pursuing their ambitions to reach high economic growth, and with the trade-off environment devastation, to prevent such serious damage and promote sustainable development. Therefore, economic development must go hand in hand with lower carbon society development. And lower carbon FDI, foreign direct investment, is one of our solutions for this issue. And in our near future, the new type of this FDI is expected to be the main trend, which not only plays a key role in the economic development, but partially helps to fight against the climate change. And for Vietnam economic development, now we depend on the volume of FDI because of our low domestic saving rate, which contribute to unpredictable economic growth of approximately from 6 to 7% per year, and resource over exploitation and raw material export. However, result in downgrading environment quality. So Vietnam should catch up the opportunities to move towards a low carbon economy and sustainable development with FDI, lower carbon FDI. Therefore, I want to research about this topic to give some suggestions for Vietnam in the future. And for the overall overview knowledge and information about lower carbon FDI, I would like to give the summary definition about the lower carbon FDI. This type of FDI is the transfer of technology, practice, and products by TNC, the transnational corporation, to host countries through equity FDI and non-equity forms of participation, such as their own and related operations, as well as use of their products and services generates a significant lower GHG is a greenhouse gas emissions than would otherwise prevail in the industry and the business as usual circumstance. Its thus definition is given by the UNTAS, it's the Organization of United States in Trade and Investment, in their report in the year 2010. And the low carbon FDI is divided into the three categories: as investment in productions processes with the reduced greenhouse gas impact, and the second is investment in clean energy generations, and the third is investment in research and production facilities to produce GHG reducing products and provide related services. There are two components of low carbon FDI. I mentioned is the low carbon goods and services and the low carbon production processes. That is a graphic that summarizes the process that leading the greenhouse gas emission reductions along the type of value chain of TNC. As we know that in the firm operations, they consist three stages: is input or supplier, and productions process, and waste treatment. And in each stage, with the innovative technology, firms might potentially reduce carbon emissions. In the first step, firm can switch to the use of inputs with lower carbon emissions. And in the second stage, a firm might develop both soft and hard technology to consume less of particular inputs or use input more efficiently. And the last stage is to recycle or dispose of wastes. And firm might continue to utilize high carbon technology or inputs, but at the last stage, they can capture or store gas release underground. In other words, their network firm can require and support and give guidance to their suppliers and their customer or their partners to upgrade operation and develop green technologies. That is the overview, the basic knowledge about the lower carbon FDI. And that graphic shows the rise of lower carbon FDI in the recent years over the world. As you know, in this graphics, we have 10 years of development of low carbon FDI. And you can see that the developed economies occupy the most of that type of FDI. And the second is developing economies, because in the recent year, many developing economies are the outward foreign FDI. They're not only the recipient, they also the investor. And that graphic shows the FDI projects by sector, because you know that the initial site of low carbon FDI identification in developing countries is the investment sectors and the foreign investor from developed countries. So that shows there are three main sectors in the economies, and the primary industry. In that industry, they use a lot of raw materials and natural resources, and this sector primary is much lower in the recent years compared with the beginning of the year 2000. For the FDI project in extractive industry, it's much more clear. It's clearer for us to see in the extractive industry, in oil or gas or metal or coal mining or other industry. in the primary, you can see that the percentage and their share in the total is decreased. It's decreased in the recent years. In the type of FDI cross-border M&A or greenfield projects. For Vietnam, we have the current situation FDI in Vietnam. You know that Vietnam have taken their đổi mới strategy since 1986, but the FDI inflow come into Vietnam since 1990, and from this year to last year 2007, the FDI in overall increased speedily. However, you can see in the top 10 countries with highest FDI in Vietnam, it's not the developed countries, it's not the modern and the high technology economy. It is Korea with 1/3, with 30% of FDI in Vietnam, and the second is Japan and Singapore and the other ASEAN countries. That is not this country is not the developed country. It means that they were not transferred in Vietnam the modest or the highest technology or the clean technology. And by sectors, the industry sector is occupied 56% in all total FDI in Vietnam, and the service is 42, and agriculture and forestry and fishing is only 2%. It's very small. And now I would like to give you some factors that can help Vietnam to achieve green FDI. I summarize in 4 factors. That is economic growth, political and social stability, and government orientation and support, and business facilitation. For economic growth, as you know that Vietnam GDP growth rate is in the high rate for the long time, from 6 to 7% per year. And Vietnam economy had a big jump in after the reform, after we do the reform, and GDP has increased significantly by the recent years. That can attract more and more foreign investors to come to Vietnam. And the second factor is the political risk, because all foreign investors, when they decided to invest to any destination, they have to consider the political risk. And you can see the data, the number in this table. Vietnam has the degree of difficulty of doing business and the importance of political risk is lower than China, but it's higher than the other ASEAN countries. And ease of doing business in last year, 2017, we are in the rank of 82 in the over of 190 countries. It's only higher than the lowest or the lowest countries in ASEAN. For example, in Thailand has rank 46, but Vietnam is 82. It's not very high. It's not very high rank. And the third factor is government orientation and support. And you know that Vietnam is a developing country, so We set a goal of the economy of industrialization and modernization in the year of 2020. So Vietnam focuses on developing fossil energy using the industry, not the service, which result in millions of toxic gas released and forest destroy and air and noise and water pollution. And so that is have much more difficult to Vietnam to attract the green FDI or low carbon FDI. And in the surveys of the UNTAS in 2010, there are some barriers to enforce to attract low carbon FDI, and you can see that the number one factors is regulatory framework. Is occupy the 20% of the respondents in the survey. So I think that that is one of the most important factors that Vietnam should consider. So I give some suggestions for Vietnam to attract more and more green FDI for the near future. That is, we should focus on the regulations and legal regimes, improvement of management role of government and involvement society, and transparency enhancement. And for more detail, we should build up investment promotion strategy for low carbon FDI, and Vietnam should implement a conducive policy framework for low carbon investment, and we should enact market creation policies that foster the demand for new low carbon products and services is very important for the long term, and develop the measure to have the diffusion of technology, and Vietnam should develop a promotion program for lower carbon investment. So I think that Vietnam have takes lots of time to build up and to carry out the investment promotion strategy for lower carbon FDI. But for the sustainable development, Vietnam should do it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay. Dear Vietnamese friends, thank you very much for interesting presentation. And dear colleagues, do you have any question to our presenter? Please, Professor Yefimova.
Thank you very much for very interesting, significant, valuable presentation. But I'd like to clarify a very important for me question, because I'm an analyst. And my question is connected with the problem of ESG integration into investment process. Traditionally, when we analyze any investment project, we use such criteria like net present value, internal rate of return, and so on. They are just financial. But these projects have very different outcomes, and maybe the key outcome of these projects is connected with non-financial non-financial results. I suppose that in future we will get a financial outcome from these investments. But how can we integrate these very often non-financial information, ESG information, into the process of project evaluation? Do you have maybe information about the experience in this field? Because all these projects need to solve this problem, the problem of integration, non-financial information and financial data. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.
Sorry, dear Vietnamese friend, do you understand our question, or shall we repeat it?
Can you summarize your question in the short sentence?
Okay, it's our pleasure.
Okay.
Repeat, please.
This investing, kind of an investing, has different kinds of outcomes, financial and non-financial. My question was connected with the problem: how can we evaluate both financial and non-financial outcomes of these projects? Financial, I see, it's performance, profit, profitability, and so on. But how can we include this non-financial information into financial decision? Thank you. Or maybe it's not your subject to consider, maybe.
Okay, dear
I'm
Vietnamese
sorry.
friend, shall we type our question, or what is it?
I think that non-financial investment is mean that a TNC in transnational company do their investment in Vietnam, and they first they can transfer the high technology for Vietnam, and they can create the job for the Vietnamese labor, or they can, if their business is very good, they can pay their tax for the Vietnamese government, or they, if they use clean or the clean technology, or they do business in the clean technology sector, they can make the environment much better in Vietnam, and we can have the number of labor, or the number of taxation, or the number of technology that they can transfer for Vietnam. So we can assess their efficiency of their project in Vietnam.
I see. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, because lack of time, dear colleague, let us go to our discussion, and our remote expert, first of all, tell us please, which of presentation do you recommend to publication? It is possible to recommend more than one presenter, but tell us only the serial number of presenter which presentation, according to your opinion, deserve to be published in our RozaSagitova journal. London, it's your turn. What is your opinion?
What means serial number?
The
number 1, 2, and 3.
First presenter, second presenter, third presenter.
So do I type it or do I write it? Do I say it?
As you wish.
I think the first paper was very interesting, and it was clearly identified the objectives of the research, and there were clear results, and contribution was evident. I like the second paper as well, because you can see what was, again, what was the objective, what were the research questions, what were the results.
Mm-hmm.
I think the third paper still needs a bit of work, because it wasn't really clear what were the research objectives and what would be the impact. So that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your opinion. Dear Vietnamese colleague, now confirm please which of presentation, according to your opinion, deserve to be published? First, second, or third one? Which presentation impressed you most of all? What presentation was most interesting? Maybe you choose one, maybe two, maybe all our presentation. It's your right. Are you deeply in doubt about the results?
Excuse me. What do you mean with the we select the presentation for what?
Sorry?
For publishing on.
I ask you to choose presentation to be published in our scientific journal.
In your journal? Exactly what journal?
This our financial university English written scientific journal, a review of business and economic studies. I announce at the very beginning of our meeting about it. Okay, while you decide, maybe I ask. Are you ready? Okay.
Can you give me some time to think about this, and we will give you the answer after.
Okay, for sure. So,
okay.
Dear,
my my study, I want to publish it in some other journal, maybe. Because this study is not my study alone. I write it with the other co-author, and I have to ask them whether they want to publish on your journal or not, or they want to apply to another journal.
Okay, maybe you tell us which presentation you choose as the best presentation of our meeting. Maybe you give us decision about presentation that impress you most of all. Or you may tell us that all three presentations are equal and deserve to be published in any journals.
You mean that we just vote for the better presentation or catch up that?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so sorry, we have almost.
Let me some minutes to discuss this.
How many minutes do you need?
1 minute.
For your decision. Okay, I'll give you 1 minute for your decision, and
okay.
maybe our
discussings we both of my our presentation. The first presentation is of presenter Lady Wendy Tanton.
Okay, I see. You chose the first presentation. I got it. And dear our team of experts, now your turn, your decision. Take into account the previous decision of our Vietnamese and our English participant.
Thank you. Frankly speaking, I enjoy listening of all three presentations. I think that these research were very interesting with significant outcomes. So really, it's quite a difficult task to choose, but if it's possible, I would recommend three. Research, I think they can be published in our journal, but most of all, I think the first presentation, because there are very comprehensive data and conclusion. The second one is classical research with system of hypothesis development, regression analysis, conclusion, theoretical basis. So I suppose that the second presentation should be published in our journal. But my point of view of the third presentation is the same. It was very interesting because it's our subject, a subject of our meeting today was connected with sustainable development. And the subject is very important for our meeting today. So I suppose that the third presentation will be very interesting for our readers in thinking about sustainable development. Thank you.
So it is decision of our expert team. Thank you. And dear friends, with great gratitude to all our speakers, to all our participants, to all our experts, I announce the completion of our work. Till next meeting now in autumn. Thank you once more and goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.